You are listening to the Disney Dream Girls, an unofficial Disney Theme Parks podcast, and this is show number 484 for December the 24th, 2023.
Where dreams begin.
Hello and welcome to this week's Disney Dream Girls. My name is Michelle Young, and usually, along with my jolly good chum Jane Phipps, we are your guides to the place where dreams begin. So this week's show, no, Jane, I have left her in decorating her home for Christmas heaven right now, but I am joined by my delightful duo from Diz Down Under, Kat and Lewis. Hello and welcome, guys.
Thanks for having us, Michelle. We're glad to be recording with you again. It's been a minute, hasn't it?
G'day, Michelle.
It technically has been a minute because we've just recorded for your podcast as well.
Has to be done.
Has to be done, so please make sure you also check out Diz Down Under and you can hear me and them talking a little bit about Disney. A surprise?
Yeah.
So guys, we have got some exciting things we need to talk about because you have had your first big bites of the cherry of getting back out of your home city of Perth and going and getting yourselves some Disney vacation. So, many eons ago, you booked this amazing set of little trips, and today I thought it'd be really good for us to unpack a little bit about the trips that you've just had. So I'm going to hand really the microphone over to you guys for you just to tell us all about the experience you had on the Disney Wonder.
I don't even know where to start. It was such a magical trip right from the outset. One of the things that we were able to do was because of not traveling anywhere and the way that our points accumulate, we had enough points to actually splurge. And even though we flew from Perth to Sydney on what we call a midnight horror, so it's an overnight flight, we did a bit of a splurge and managed to get on our points business class flights, which meant that we had the lie flat beds. Oh my goodness, I can see why rich people do this all the time. It was such an amazing thing just to be able to push the bed out and have not a long sleep because it's not a particularly long flight, but have a quality kind of sleep. So that was kind of cool right from the outset. We're like, right, hit the ground running. And that was really cool.
It's kind of weird, though, if you do suffer from a little bit of claustrophobia, it is a bit more enclosed than a normal seat on a plane.
Oh, well, not enclosed. It's just that your feet tuck under the seat in front of you.
Yeah, but you got the thing on your side as well.
Oh, okay.
And so, to me, when I was, lying down, I was like, I feel a little bit like I'm in a coffin.
Oh,
so
okay.
it was...
You're a bit morbid, aren't you?
Well, it's not morbid. It's just like the enclosed space kind of thing. Like on a plane, you're already in an enclosed space, and this is enclosing a space even more. And so,
Bit of an anxiety trigger.
yeah. So
Okay.
it's like so people do something. People have claustrophobia. I have very mild claustrophobia, but if people have bad ones, I can understand that could be an issue for them.
It might not be though as well. They might have different ways of thinking about their claustrophobia.
Maybe.
But it was good overall. Yes.
Oh yeah,
No?
no. It was good.
Okay.
I think I'd prefer to just be awake and watch movies and do that kind of thing.
Yeah, I know, but we didn't really have that opportunity because we need to get across there, and we did it the overnight flight. Anyway, I won't get into the minutiae of everything, but we did have a really good pre-cruise stay in Sydney, and we were able to watch the Wonder go out on her first voyage from Sydney, from Circular Quay. So that was pretty amazing.
I think one of the big things is the excitement that in general having the ship here in Australia for the very first time brought out in people. People were coming down to Circular Quay to watch it arrive. People were coming down to Circular Quay to watch it leave. It was very unusual because the Disney cruise ships are not like most of the modern cruise ships, which are usually big white kind of things. The Disney cruise ships are really classical and just have a very different look to them. So it certainly made a lot of people take a bit of notice.
Definitely. And the day that we landed was the day that she'd first come over to Circular Quay. And while we missed her pulling in, it was there was a lot of people down there taking photos. So that was interesting on its own, because we landed obviously fairly early in the morning, so that early morning light and just seeing that ship hanging around, that was pretty cool.
And we didn't even think it would be there. We thought it had already left for Tasmania, and we just like turned up there and, oh my God, there it is.
Yeah, so being able to watch the Wonder go out onto the harbour and hearing the Mickey whistle like 3 or 4 times, I think they've probably been banned from doing it. Probably some of the rich people that live around the harbour put in complaints.
I had a word to one of them the other day.
Oh, really? Did he complain?
No.
Okay.
He wasn't even living there at the time.
Oh, okay. But that was really cool. One of the cool things that was not Disney that we did, but kind of Disney adjacent, because it kind of felt like staying at Animal Kingdom, was staying a night at Taronga Zoo at their
Wilderness Retreat.
Wilderness Retreat. I was going to say Wilderness Lodge. And that was a really, really excellent experience. I think if you are from Australia, or if you are international and you do have the opportunity, I would look into doing that experience, because it was like, we've been to Taronga Zoo. I've probably been about 2 or 3 times in my life. I think you're probably about the same, Lou. And it was something that just really added to that zoo experience and was absolutely magical.
Had a freaking koala outside our room.
That is true. That is very true. So it was very much immersed in the wildlife, and the views of Sydney were just extraordinary. So that was pretty cool. But I mean, ultimately it was about the Wonder. So I woke up on the morning that she was coming back into port and watched on my phone on one of those tracking apps to see when we were going to be able to see the ship coming in, and literally just watched her come in. And it was that very, very early light. It was beautiful to watch, and we had a really good accommodation that had an excellent view of that coming in. So that was kind of cool. And it just, I don't know, like to me, and I don't know how you felt about it, Lewis, but for me it was like Christmas morning. It had that real vibe. Like, you know, when you're a kid and you wake up and you know that there's going to be presents under the tree and that you're going to be doing stuff with family all day, and just like having that Christmas experience, that anticipation of, like, I think we booked something like, was it 400 days, or it was 399 days before our cruise was due to set sail. So it was just like one of those things that we'd planned and we'd waited for so long that it really did feel like Christmas Day.
And it was because other cruise ships were coming and going as well, and seeing people get on and off, and then seeing people in the hotel, obviously, who were going to go on to Disney cruise. There was just that excitement and anticipation in the air. So it was really, really good. And being just across from the cruise terminal and the hotel, it made everything just so easy and relaxed.
Absolutely. So we went down and spoke to the terminal staff and said, look, we're cruising tomorrow. Can we bring our bags down earlier? And they're like, yeah, from 9 o'clock you can come and drop your bags, which meant that we could drop our bags. We still had our hotel room till 11 a.m. And so our main bags were ready to go onto the ship. We could go and get some breakfast and then just sort of mooch around, go back up to our room, have a cup of tea, and then head on to the ship. It was quite neat.
Yeah.
And, you know, because we had a fairly early port arrival time. That was like 11:45.
11:45, which I think is pretty much the earliest port arrival time after concierge and after. No?
I think there was 11:15 and 11:30 before us.
Oh, but weren't they like concierge and platinum and stuff?
I couldn't tell you.
Right.
My understanding was that concierge was a little bit earlier.
Okay.
But I could be wrong. But the boarding experience was quite different from when we cruised from Florida. We didn't go straight up and into check-in and do those final, you know, you're not sick kind of documentation things. That was sent to us as an email prior to cruising. So that was done sort of in the last 24 hours prior to cruising. So that was a nice change, because you didn't have to worry about doing paperwork per se. You just had to have your cruise documentation with you. rather than going through and being part of a massive crowd waiting for boarding groups to be called onto the ship, you literally went through the process with your boarding group. So they got you to stand in a queue outside, sort of in a little corralled area, and then you walked through, and it was the smoothest, quickest process I've ever experienced on any form of transportation, to be honest.
Was that similar to your experience on the Magic, Michelle?
Well, we boarded from Southampton, and it was during COVID, so there was a lot of difference to what there would have normally have been. So, for example, we had to dispatch our bags first, and then we had to go and have our COVID test, and then wait in a big sort of like massive empty room with some seats until we were cleared and told we were clean to go on the ship, etc. So I imagine out of COVID, the embarkation system will be very, very different. So I don't know. I can't really comment because it was during that weird travel blip where everything was upside down.
Yeah, I must hit Jane up to see what her experience was when she went on the Dream, was it, that she sailed on?
Yeah, she went on the Dream and went to Norway and Copenhagen. And what was the other part? I know she went to Brussels. So, yeah, and she's booked again to go next September.
Goodness, that's amazing. She's another addict. And so
she's got the bug.
It's one of those things, isn't it? It's just like, look, you're going on a Disney cruise. We have to warn you. You will be addicted to doing this afterwards. It's a problem, but it's a good problem to have. Look, so the embarkation I thought was actually better. Not being sort of in the terminal with a lot of people. Didn't have we didn't have Captain Mickey and Captain Minnie to greet us in the terminal, which I thought was a little bit ho-hum, but it didn't really matter. So, they did the same process in terms of stepping onto the ship, and they announced you as you board. I think that that's a very cute touch. And it was just lovely because, like, even though we've never sailed on that particular ship, we kind of felt at home, and it didn't feel like it was too different from the Fantasy. Obviously, it was scaled down a little bit, but again, it didn't feel like it was tiny compared to the Fantasy. Probably having a bit of time and in between really helped that, don't you think, Lou?
Yeah. Michelle, when you were on the Princess Cruise, 'cause you've done some Princess Cruises, did they announce you onto the ship as well? Is that a across the board thing, or is that a Disney thing?
No, they do announce you as you go on board as well, but they do have a few sort of staff members sort of lining up and sort of applauding as you go on board, and you go into the atrium. So it's a very similar experience. But I do remember when we did that one sailing on the Magic from Southampton, they had Mickey and Minnie on the staircase greeting people as well, which I felt was a nice touch.
They did have different characters over, because people are boarding for like from 11 o'clock until like 3 o'clock, I guess. And so during that time, you've got different characters on the stairs greeting people. But yeah, when you got onto the ship, it was kind of like you get on and then you get like pointed in the direction of the restaurants for go and get some lunch. And so that's what we did.
Yeah, we did. And we went to Tiana's because we didn't know what sort of opportunity we were going to get, because we checked into the app and switched it over to the onboard scenario while we were waiting for our boarding group to be let through. And we're like, oh, goodness, we're not really going to have an opportunity to dine at Tiana's this time. But we'll see if we don't get an opportunity to dine at Tiana's next time as well, then we might talk to the crew and see whether we can get our schedule altered.
Because we were doing a 2-night back-to-back. So
yeah, so two nights.
Two nights, yeah.
So that we're kind of relaxed about that, but we thought, yeah, we'll definitely hit up Tiana's for lunch rather than going to Cabanas. I think that was a good move. We had also booked the rainforest room so that we could enjoy that. We booked it and it was priced for 2 nights, but I do think that because that particular sailing wasn't leaving port until 7:30, or was it 7 o'clock? Sorry, it was 7 o'clock that it left port, but it wasn't out of the heads until about 7:30. We didn't really get an opportunity to use it on that first day, on the embarkation day at all, because it didn't open until, obviously, and it couldn't open and trade until after we'd left, which was quite a shame. But, I mean, there was, like I say, plenty to do. It's just that I did feel a little bit ripped off because we had paid to use it from embarkation day. So that was a bit of a shame, but it wasn't a complete loss because we got plenty of use out of it but mainly because the next sailing didn't have a late departure time. It had quite an early departure time. I think we set sail around 4:30.
Yeah. And because we're doing two night back to back, the itinerary is identical for both times. So in the first 2 days, we basically just got in there and saw all the shows, and we did a couple of tastings and stuff like that. And then on the second 2 nights, it was kind of, well, we don't need to go see the shows. We've seen them. So we could just be a bit more relaxed about everything. It was more about chilling out.
That is very true. And I think that it did give us that time to really unwind with the second one, because the times for everything on that first sailing, particularly with the first night, were very very full on, and especially for families, because the on deck entertainment on both nights didn't start until 10:30. So that's pretty huge.
That's quite late.
And so on the first night, obviously you've got your sail away party, and that's no different than any other sailing. But on the second night, we got a bit of a treat down in Australia, and I think it's something that they haven't yet rolled out in the States even, isn't it, Lou?
Well, I hadn't heard of it, and I would have thought that I would have known about had that been the case. But yeah, it's the Marvel Superheroes at Sea, which is a Marvel show, and it's...
Is it really called Marvel Superheroes at Sea?
Is it? I don't know. It's like... I'll have a look. Just see...
Is it not called Marvel's Heroes Unite?
Heroes Unite, yeah, fair enough. But... it's Marvel Superheroes.
You're a bad Marvel fan. I'm going to take your fan club card off you.
It's Marvel Superheroes on the boat, but it's really cool because it's a mixture of live action stuff plus stuff they've filmed on the ship, and so there was some dodgy animation as well. But yeah, it really makes you feel immersive.
It does, and it means that wherever you're standing on deck, as long as you can see the screen, you can see everything, because they had live cameras rolling as well. And it meant that people weren't scrambling to get a good view of what was happening. It meant that you could sort of stand back and be sort of 3 or 4 people deep and still be able to see what was going on if you're on the sort of the top side.
Although that being said, it's better to turn up there at least like 30 to 45 minutes early to get a decent spot. Because we were the first night we kind of
we didn't have a great view the first night. We weren't on the railing, but we were probably about 3 or 4 people back.
Yeah, and
but I still enjoyed it.
Yeah, that was great. And the reason for that was because we'd booked a tasting, like a cognac tasting, and the cognac tasting was just so soon after dinner, we didn't get time to actually have our full dinner. And we had to bail and get to the cognac tasting and then do the cognac tasting and then leave and go straight to the show. So it did make everything a little bit tight.
Yeah, it did, because they didn't adjust the tastings for the meal schedule. Because we set sail a little bit later, the captain elected to have the dining times about 15 minutes later than usual. So usually it would have been an 8:15 dining time for the late dining, but they pushed it back to 8:30, which meant that there was just no way that we could have a full meal and enjoy that before we went to the tasting. But, you're never lacking for food on a Disney Cruise Line cruise. I think that was probably one of the downsides of that first half of our stay on the Wonder, but it didn't really matter. Like, we weren't that fussed, and we didn't really have particularly great dining buddies that we felt like we were missing out on their company. They were fine. It's just on the fantasy on both sailings that we had really good cruise buddies. So, on the first sailing, obviously, we had yourself, Michelle, and Stephen. And then on the second sailing, we had, I think there were 2 other couples. And we were all just like, it was like one of the things that we found that Disney did on that particular one is that they found 3 childless couples who were on exactly the same page in terms of their love for Disney, whacked them on the same table, and we were just absolutely chuffed. Like, we'd see each other around the boats, and it's just like, where are you going? Oh, I'm going to go do this cruise. Oh, I might come along. It's just, do this trivia, sorry.
Yes.
And, so people would, go, oh, I might join you if that's cool. Yeah. And so we'd go and do that. And it didn't really have that element. I don't know whether it was because it was other Australians or what the difference was, but
it's a 2-night cruise. It's very hard to bond with people in 2 nights.
Yeah, that's very true. So it's, I don't know.
And also, like on the first one, like both nights we had to leave early to go to a tasting. On the second one, we had one night with our table mates, and the second night we were doing Palo, so we didn't see them then. So we just saw them on the first night at breakfast. So it's just 2-night cruise is kind of like, you're not going to have that same experience as when you've got like 6 nights or 7 nights,
So the entertainment was really good. The stage shows we had, the Frozen, sort of like what would you call it, like the abridged musical, which I think is an excellent way to see that movie. Not that I don't like the full one, it's just like I think that they do a really good job of abridging it and making it so that you still know what's gone on, and they do it on a tiny stage. It's pretty spectacular.
Well, it's not really that abridged either. It is like all the songs from the movie. But when you do the actual Broadway version of it, they've got to add more things into it to make it longer.
This is true.
Yeah.
This is very true. And then the second show was Disney
Dream.
And it was okay, but it was it's nothing particularly new. It was another show that was similar to, was it Disney Wish, I think was the other
because there was
one that we saw on the fantasy, where it's just like a way to bring in all the Disney characters on stage.
A bridging story.
Yeah, it's fine. It's just like, you just don't feel like it's anything particularly new when you see it. But I quite enjoyed both of the shows.
So we don't necessarily need to see them again when we go back.
No, but there will be other experiences that we see.
Golden Mickey.
Yeah. So there'll be other things when we do the 6th night that's coming up. But we managed to get through all of the restaurants. So on board they've got Triton's, they've got Animator's Palette, and they've got Tiana's. We managed to get to Tiana's on a night where they had their sort of their entertainment side of things going. So that was really cool. And we also got to Palo. Now, I don't know. We had a really, really excellent experience on the fantasy in terms of dining. And the food I thought was exemplary at all times. I don't think we had anything that was poor. I did find not only were we quite rushed with our dining, and didn't really get a chance to really enjoy some things for as long as I would have liked to. I did find that the quality of the food that was served wasn't quite the same standard as what we'd experienced on the fantasy. And unfortunately, that included Palo. So while our Palo dining experience was good, I wouldn't have classified it as excellent. And given that it's the only upcharge venue on board, and that the upcharge was, I think, a little bit more than it was previously. I think it was $60 per head. It was not a bad dining experience, and our server was lovely. We were well looked after. I just felt like it wasn't as exemplary as I've had in the past, because we did we only did dinner once on Palo on the fantasy, and we did brunch once previously. So it wasn't necessarily wholesale disappointing. It was just like a noticeable difference in quality.
But the odd thing was we did a lot of tastings with the the what's the word I'm looking for? Sommelier from
the head sommelier, yeah.
from Parlo. We did a lot of tastings with him, and we said, "Oh, like, is it busy up there?" Because like we tried to book in for brunch and tried to book in for dinner, and he was like, "Oh no, it's dead." It's like, what?
Wow,
And
wow.
when we were up there was like very few tables that were actually had people at it. It was like, why isn't this full? And like people wanted to book it and they couldn't get it. And so I'm baffled with what was going on there.
I think what happens is, and they did the same thing with the Rainforest Room. So I didn't realize that the Rainforest Room was something that you could pre-book until someone said something in one of the groups. I was like, you can pre-book that now? That's amazing. We managed to get bookings for the sailings that we wanted to get, and that was pretty amazing. But I think but if you don't get that booking, they still reserve some of those bookings for people to actually book in on an embarkation day. And I don't think people necessarily realize that. And what they also do, I think, is they only put so many pre-bookings for Parlo, and then you can probably go to guest services and get a reservation on embarkation day. So I'm actually going to try that out this time, not necessarily for dinner, but I wouldn't mind moving where our brunch falls, because we did manage to get a brunch booking. And if we can move that, I will. And it'll be interesting to see if we can do that for the 6-nighter that we've got booked in.
Yeah. And maybe we might go and do Parlo again on the 2-nighter.
Yeah, maybe.
Just for
fun. Funsies.
Can I ask about the actual ports that you get to visit on these cruises? Were they staycations where you didn't get off the ship? And thinking ahead to the one that you're doing later on this year, are you actually getting off the ship?
No. So the 2-night sailings are either port to port in terms of, so our first sailing was Sydney to Melbourne, or it's an actual staycation where the second one was Melbourne to Melbourne. And so you don't get off during the sailing, but there are some other ones. So there was, prior to us leaving Sydney, the sailing before that was a 4-nighter that went down to Hobart, which is in Tasmania, which is, for people that don't know, the little island off Australia, which is its own state. And there are sailings that go to New Zealand, but I think that they're only doing Auckland as a port. I don't think that they're doing any other ports around New Zealand at this stage. And obviously you've got repositioning cruises within Australia. So the ports that the Wanderer is leaving from is Melbourne, Sydney. It'll be heading over to Brisbane shortly. I think it actually starts at sailing over there this week. It might be actually this weekend, and Auckland in New Zealand. The only one where they're going a little bit further afield, apart from the repositioning to and from Hawaii, is to the cruise that we're doing over New Year, which is from Sydney up to Noumea. And they're doing the same sailing, and the same itinerary, I think later in January, but I'm not sure which date. So it's a fairly limited schedule. And to be honest, there aren't a lot of ports that are being visited. I think Eden is another port that they're visiting in Tasmania, but that's about it.
At least it's giving you the opportunity to really get an enjoyment from the cruise experience, because that's the one thing that I had in my head for when I was going to Alaska. I'm not on the cruise ship for the Disney, I'm on the cruise ship for the destination. Whereas with this, you're on the cruise ship for the Disney. Does that make sense?
It makes absolute sense. So for us, this was our getting back into Disney, but being able to do it closer to home. At the moment, airfares are really expensive still. And for the times that we're able to really travel, they're actually prohibitive for us. So being able to experience a real taste of Disney, but in Australia, so we're only having to get across to the eastern states, which, it's still a fair hike for us, but it's not cost prohibitive. And like I said, we were able to take advantage of points to get ourselves over there. It's just, I don't know, just like a nice way to re-immerse yourself in that experience. And look, we might, after our 6-night cruise, we might just go, oh, we are wondered out. We won't book any more sailings for next year on the Wonder. But we're not that far from the Adventure coming online, which will be up in Singapore. So, maybe next Christmas we aim to be booking Singapore. I don't know.
That's what I don't understand is they've already announced that the Wonder's coming back to Australia next year and also coming back the year after. But the thing is...
But next year's sailings are almost identical to this year's sailings.
And the thing is that, as much as we like the Wonder, we will have been on this ship for, 4, 10, 12 nights in total. Mm-hmm. And, we really enjoy our time on there. But will we want to go back and do the same ship again next year? Yeah. Or would it make more sense to maybe send the Magic down, which is the same configuration but slightly different kind of stuff on there?
Yeah, I think that's a valid point. And I think that it'll be interesting, like I say, after that after the next sailing, which is the 6-nighter, whether we're just a little bit done with that particular ship. But to your point as well, Michelle, immersing yourself in the Disney and just having those sea days. I know that we all remarked on our sailing on the Fantasy that the sea days were the best days. It was amazing. I really enjoyed going and exploring the Caribbean. I thought that was amazing. Every destination that we got off at was just amazing. We really enjoyed it. But the real quality of having a sea day and just being able to relax into it was just absolutely wonderful. And it was just chock full of Disney goodness.
I completely agree. I just loved the days where we didn't have to get off the ship and we could explore, do the quizzes, chill out by the pool, have some cocktails, have pre-lunch, have lunch, have post-lunch, have coffee, have cocktails. Fantastic.
Yeah. And the weather for us on the 2-night sailings that we just completed wasn't the best. So unfortunately, one of the things that we didn't do on Embarkation Day in Sydney was take advantage of the pool. Really wish that we had, because it was just not, it was possible. People did swim in the pool, but they were very, very brave people. And at one stage in the main pool deck where you've got funnel vision, there were about 40 kids all packed into the spa watching funnel vision. And if there hadn't been kids, I would have taken a picture, because it was the cutest scene you've ever seen. They were packed in like little sardines, all facing the same way, because they're all watching funnel vision. It was very sweet.
So because you didn't go in the pool, can I take it you didn't brave the aqueduct?
That is correct. We will be going on that in December, because the weather will be much more favourable for getting dunked.
Very exciting.
So we're heading north as well.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and summer's here, so there's that too. It's just, I guess it's different when you're sailing in the cooler climes. It's just one of those things. We thought it might have been a little bit warmer by that stage. Australia decided that it wanted to regress back into winter, like the whole of the country. It was really weird. And, it is what it is. You can't control the weather.
No, but I loved it, because Kat and I do enjoy when you can actually feel the movement of the ship and look outside and see the seas being a little bit rough. And there was one day where it was quite choppy. And it was really good. And so we would spend a bit of time in the Cadillac bar, just chilling out. Both a lot of nights we ended up there just listening to the piano player.
Oh, Will. I can't think what his surname is. I want to say Will Anderson, because that's a podcast that I listen to. but it's not Will Turner. It's Will. Oh, I'll come to it in a minute. But he was absolutely brilliant. He'd be rocking out some tunes on the piano and keeping everyone very amused. He'd take special requests. He was pretty awesome, I must say. But it was one of those things that it was just a nice way to finish the evening, is to go down, have a cheeky drink, and listen to some tunes that were just like, they were really accessible, really sort of poppy kind of tunes, as well as having some Disney hits in there as well.
Yeah, no, it was really good, and also going to the British pub as well was really good. On the first day that we were there, one of the crew members mentioned about Mary Poppins' umbrella being somewhere in the place, and Kat and I went in there and were just looking. We couldn't find it, and eventually we had to ask her to point it out to us, and so she did, and we're like, there it is. Okay, fair enough.
That was pretty cool. So there's lots of Will Pearson, sorry, is the name of the pianist that was performing in the Cadillac Bar. But that was the thing, is that there was doing the Art of the Theme tour was great. It was a slightly abridged version because it was only a 2-night sailing, so they did kind of whisk through things, but it touched on all the basics, and you got a bit of a insight into all the little added extras that you wouldn't necessarily pick up on your own, or if you'd only been on the ship for a couple of days or a couple of nights, as it were.
Never went into the Buena Vista Theatre, but we did smell the popcorn. That smelled very, very good. But we went into the Walt Disney Theatre for the 2 shows. The shows, they've got two show times, like one early, one late. So if you're on the early dinner, you see the early show. If you're on the late dinner, you see the late show. And Kat and I were trying to get into the early show for Frozen, so that we were like done and dusted with that, and we could go to Rainforest or do something else later in the day. But when you were walking in, they were asking what time your dinner seating was, and I think a lot of people lied.
Oh, they did outright.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
The crew member said, "Look, I can't let you in because this is reserved for the people that are doing early dining. But if you don't mind waiting, just stand to one side, and if we've got room, you can absolutely go in." And so we stood there and we had a bit of a chat with her and stuff, and it was quite nice. And there was another crew member that we spoke to, and it's just interesting finding out about the lifestyle of being a crew member, and you know, because I didn't realize that there were maritime laws that required them to have, you know, a certain amount of time off between contracts so that they with their shore leave. So I thought that was interesting. But so we sat there and had a really good little chat with them. And as she was letting people through, she was asking them, are you the late dining or early dining? And people would say, oh, why? And well, you know, this is reserved for early dining. And people would go, oh, early dining. And there was one guy who said that, walked through, and then nudged his wife and just said, ha, 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 we're late dining. And I was just like, oh, that's a bit off. But what they've started doing now is requiring people to have their Navigator app open so they can show which dining they are, which I think is fair.
Because that theatre was packed out, but admittedly they
were really lovely. Yeah. They said, look, you guys have been waiting, just stand at the back, and if you don't mind standing there, watch the show. And we enjoyed the show from there.
Yeah.
I thought it was actually
always happens. It's the select one or two who spoil it for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just like, did you really need to do that? No.
Didn't get any snow on us though.
No, that's true.
It's all very exciting being able to go off and explore a different cruise ship. So thinking, as you said, you've got the adventure coming ahead to you guys. So that's going to be so exciting. New things, amazing. But can we just clarify one last thing about this cruise? What was the situation with the Mickey bars?
So from what I understand, there was a general shipment problem. So the Mickey bars were being shipped out. They weren't cold enough, and so they were arriving not Mickey bar shaped anymore. And so they decided to call it quits and get something locally. So I believe it's the same as the UK sailings where they've got the Magnums. And
so wrong. I'm so angry. We had the same problem when we did the sailing from Southampton, and it's like, dudes, there are plenty of places in the UK that can snaffle you up several billion Mickey bars Get it sorted.
Yeah, it just seems a little bit odd. I mean, they transport frozen goods around the world all the time, and I don't understand whether it might be a cost prohibitive exercise for them. Maybe that's the issue. But whatever it is, it was a little bit sad. I don't know whether they had them on our sailing because we didn't order a Mickey bar on the sailings, I have to say. We just didn't have the opportunity. We're like, we're going to be back in December. We'll do it then. Yeah.
No, we ain't.
Nah.
They
Challenge for the next one.
They had the faux whip on there, so it's not Dole Whip. It's the kind of the more slushy version of Dole Whip.
But it was actually a really bad version of it. Like the version that was on the Fantasy was palatable. This was barely palatable.
Yeah. And they charged you for it as well. And we were just like, oh my goodness. And the charge was like not small. It was like $9 or something. I was like, this is wrong.
Yeah.
But they have free soft serve on that deck as well. So next time I'm just going, I'm going to soft serve it up, baby.
Oh, and look, the soft serve was great. You got that berry flavor, and that was outstanding. I mean,
and apparently they change the flavor every day. So I'll be taking advantage of that in December and January.
That's true. And I want to try more of the quick service stuff as well, because you can jump out on deck and, like, we tried the burgers. Did you have a burger or a hot dog? You had a hot dog. But I made myself a burger because, you know, you can add in your little bits after they give you the basics of the bun and the patty. One of the things that we didn't get an opportunity to try was the shawarma. So I thought that was really cool in keeping with the Avengers theming that they had, especially for the day 2 of the cruise. So that was pretty cool. We'll give that a shot next time.
They had a Pokeball thing as well where you can go get salady kind of stuff.
So there's lots of eating options available. Cabanas we had lunch at once, and we had breakfast at
once.
Okay.
We didn't realize they had churro Mickey waffles. Had we had known, we would have had churro Mickey waffles.
They only bring them out on one day, and I think that the day that we were in there was not Mickey churro waffle day.
Well, we'll have to find out what Mickey Churro Waffle Day is on our next cruise.
We will.
Yeah.
We'll butter up some crew members and find that out.
And then butter up our Mickey Waffles.
That's true. Why not? If you're going to eat that, you might as well go whole hog.
Oh, there's one thing like I wouldn't be upset about if they swapped out for the Australian version of it. Minute Maid juices are terrible. Like the Minute Maid juices were just like watered down cordial, and it was horrible.
In Cabanas, I found that they were better than the ones that were served at breakfast on what do you call it, disembarkation day?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, yeah, it was just not. It wasn't nice. Stuff didn't even taste like actual orange juice.
But I think that was a seriously watered down version. I'm not sure what that was about either. But look, I think that it was. Overall, it was still an outstanding experience. It's just there were a couple of things that just weren't to the same standard as the Fantasy. But are we going again? Yeah. And are we excited to go again? Yeah. And did we maybe tag on an extra 2 nights onto the back of this because we're like, well, we could go back to Sydney and spend a couple of nights in a hotel that we've already got booked, but that one's actually cancelable. So why don't we see if there's the opportunity to jump on the Wonder for just 2 more nights, because that'll be our first Gold cruise.
That's true, yes. Yeah.
Oh, so you might get a different stateroom gift.
Might do, because I have so many bags. I'm considering doing a giveaway on the show.
Yeah, I must admit I've got a couple of them now, so it's sort of like, yeah, we need to check it.
Well, and I thought they were going to change them as well, but apparently not.
They must have ordered like 10 billion of them at once.
Maybe. But it was a great experience. I'm glad that we were able to do it. I'm glad that they've made the leap to bring some Disney down to Australia.
Yeah, true. And I cannot wait to find out about your next experiences. It's going to be epic. So guys, make sure you don't miss anything by tuning in to Diz Down Under. So where can we find all of this good stuff, guys?
So we are on Instagram and Facebook primarily, both at Diz Down Under. And we also, well, I've dabbled in the TikTok, but I don't know whether that's going to be a long-running thing. It's more of a dabble at the moment, so that's also at Diz Down Under. But tune into the podcast. You can grab it from any of your podcatching applications that you use and hear us each week. We generally release on a Sunday. Occasionally we get caught up and it becomes a Monday if it's a public holiday because there's just so much going on.
Or if we're on a Disney cruise, we just don't record at all.
That's true. Yeah, we might have to try and do a bit of a pre-record for that, but we will get organised at some point, I'm sure.
All very exciting, and we need to get back in the same time zone as quick as we possibly can. So whether that's on a ship, whether that's on land, I don't care.
Absolutely. I think that we'll get something organised in the next year or so, I reckon. We'll have to, I mean, if the venture comes to Singapore, I mean, would you give that opportunity up?
I was only talking to my son last night about going to the Far East together, so you read my mind.
Nice. And so it's all very exciting stuff, and there's some Disney travels ahead for us, so we're very excited, and it's nice to be back into the travelling mode.
Yeah.
Right, guys, well, I am going to wrap up this week's show. If you want to catch more from us, over on Instagram, at DizDreamGirls, our website, DisneyDreamGirls.com. But until next time, it's a goodbye from me.
And goodbye from us.
Yeah.